Hey, Facebook, it's Sarah McLeodry from Synergy Behavior Solutions showing up from Portland, Oregon. It's kind of like an Oregon-y day out here, a little gray, a little sunny, little of all those kinds of things. Supposed to get some rain all week. It is Portland. So today we're going to talk about predictability in animal training. We're going to talk a little bit more about dog training because I have dogs, I don't have other animals. But this is my nerdy new topic. So welcome to Sarah McLeodry being a total geek about predictability. If you are a Pet Professional Guild member or hopefully maybe you're joining me this week. Actually, tomorrow I'm going to be doing a lecture for their Geek Week series, and it is about predictability. I'm also talking twice over the weekend, one about spaying and neutering your dogs, and then also about quick games for behavioral change. So if you're joining me on Pet Professional Guilds Week, I'd love to see you there for the Q&As there too. But let's go back to predictability. So there's so much predictability in animal training. Our animals are constantly aware of how ridiculously predictable we are as a species. We're so boring and so it's awful. And so our dogs, our cats, our birds, whatever, they constantly are observing us and trying to figure out what we're doing and why, because they don't have our language skills, all those kinds of things. And then they realize we are really, really predictable. So, first thing is, where can predictability hurt you? And so there's a couple different types of predictability. We call it unconditional and then conditioned, or purposely untrained or trained predictability. So we're going to first talk a little bit about that untrained predictability, things that happen kind of in the environment without you realizing. And those are the predictors that can really set you back in your training and kind of set your training off course unexpectedly. So ways that we see that often in animal training is with separation anxiety. Because we are so predictable, we set up these really systematic ways that we leave our house, and our pets start to realize, like, oh, the shoes have gone on. Oh, they've grabbed that certain water bottle. Oh, they put on that coat. Oh, they've gone to the back door and back again, and they've asked me to go out and they've gone back again. All these kinds of things that we do. And then they're like, oh no, that means they're going to leave me forever and ever and ever, and I'm going to be left here forever. And so we need to be really aware of how that can help us. So with separation anxiety, frequently what we do is we set up a predictor chain that has a better conditioned emotional response to it that we then train with part of our leaving, and we have a trained predictor of going away instead of this untrained, unexpected predictor. So that's one way. Different predictors are funny. Because I was doing this talk, I started really observing things that are going on around my house. And one of them is that my Lindy, my youngest dog, she gets fed away from my other dogs on her climb platform. And she knows it's feeding time, and she knows when to run and go sit on a platform. There's no cue to this behavior. And it was really interesting because we watched and figured out, and we were able to really figure out where that predictor was when she knew for sure when I was going into the mud room that it was going to be food time and not just me randomly going into the mud room, because I go into the mud room a lot. And it has to do with having her bowl in hand, and then not necessarily having the second bowl in hand, which is what we thought it was going to be. There's also a whole component about time of day. Our animals are very temporal about when these predictors happen. So I'm sure if I picked up her bowl at a time where I normally don't feed them, she might not run to her platform. But definitely within the window where feeding normally happens, she takes off to her platform. It's super fun to watch. And I could easily turn that into a trained predictor if I wanted to, because now I know when it's going to happen. And we could really harness that energy. And if I needed to, I don't need to. It's something that is not of significance. I actually like that she is able to predict I'm going to go feed her, and she ends up on her platform all on her own. That's ideal in my world. I don't have to tell her what to do. She's figured it out on her own. And that's what I love about predictors, is when they figure it out on their own, except when it goes wrong. So another good example of it going wrong is a lot of times in husbandry. So we see in husbandry, so nail trims are a really good example. And if you keep your nail clippers in a certain drawer, and you're like, oh, before I even went and got the nail clippers out, my dog already was scared and hiding with the nail trim. And it's because you probably do all of these other things before you even get to the drawer. It might have started as a drawer as a predictor, but then it goes on from there. And so you really need to change what that predicting means. So does it mean going up to the drawer and just dropping treats to change that conditioned emotional response? Does it mean moving the clippers around, having them out all the time? You can change up what that predictor cue looks like to the dog to help alleviate some of that um, stress arousal with the predictor. So, one of the easiest ways to wrap your head around predictors for you as a trainer, as an animal trainer, an animal owner, lover, cohabitator, is what is a predictor when it comes to rewards? So, people talk about marker signals. A marker signal is a predictor that a reward is coming. And so normally our marker signals are like a clicker, a verbal marker, maybe a certain word, maybe a certain sound. But then if you stop and think about what other predictors you have that your dog knows, or cat or bird or horse knows that they're going to get a treat. So a couple of mine are definitely, I do nose work with my dogs. So the word alert means that they're going to get a treat. I didn't mean it to, but it does. It is a predictor that a treat is coming. So if I false alert, my dog still gets a treat because that was my fault, not their fault. When I say I false alert, that happens. Um, then reaching for your treat bag can be a very clear predictor that a treat is coming. Reaching for your jar, I use a jar a lot in training. So reaching for that treat jar, maybe even turning your head a certain way, smiling a certain way, all of those become the predictor that the treat is coming. So a lot of clients ask us, do I have to use a clicker? And I always say, look at how many different ways your dog knows a treat is coming, reaching in your treat pouch, all these different things. They know that a treat is coming, and that becomes your marker signal. Those are your predictors about the food coming. So thinking about with your particular dog, what kind of predictors do you have that a treat is coming in a training scenario? Go ahead and put it up in the comments so we can see some of the different ones. Definitely for me, reaching for that treat jar when I'm doing, I tend not to use my marker signal a lot when I'm doing nail board training. And as soon as I reach, my dog will stop the scratching and wait for that treat. They know that movement very, very easily. And it's really fun to start watching all of these different things that have become predictors for our dogs that a treat is coming. Sometimes it's a good girl, or it's a certain way you say the word nice, or yep, or, all these different things that you don't even realize that you're doing. So that's my first thing I always like to think about. So those are untrained predictor cues. Most of them are, besides the ones that we do with the clicker and a verbal marker. But how can we use that same concept to help our dogs or our cats? And I've been using it a lot in my Hesitant Hounds class. So we have been teaching different marker signals are predictors for how the food will be given to the dog, and it really helps take the pressure off. So a lot of our hesitant dogs are very worried when people start approaching them to give them a reward. That's a lot of social pressure on those hesitant dogs. And so we teach them a marker signal that means I am going to come to you to give you something, versus a predictor marker signal that means come to me to get the treat. And then we usually teach a third one, which is just our get it game, which means that go ahead and run and chase after that treat. And it really can change their stress and anxiety knowing how that treat is going to come to them. Because if they're feeling that social pressure and then you come in on them and they're a little on the edge anyway, that really can set a big chain of events to happen. And I've even seen it where the food becomes a stressor for some dogs. And we don't want that. We don't want food to be a bad predictor. We want food to be a good predictor and good things happening. So taking that social pressure off with our hesitant hounds can really make a difference with that predictability. So they started studying predictability back in the late 50s, early 60s with rats. It had a lot to do, unfortunately, with shocking them. But we do things differently now, hopefully. At least we do here at Synergy. And what they learned is that even if something is going to be stressful for an animal, if they are given a warning, a predictor that that stressful thing is going to happen, they are less stressed in the long run. And they found this out by finding out that the mice had less gastric ulcers, stress related ulcers, when they were given these predictor signals of when was going to happen. And so thinking about that in your own life, maybe you have an issue with going, I want to say this out loud, and I don't know if my good friend Laura is listening, but I'm going to say the D word, dentist. Um, and maybe you have a little stress about going to see that person. But if you know it's going to happen and you are aware, instead of, imagine if someone grabbed you and shoved you into a dentist chair and you just were like, whoa, didn't know that was going to happen. And you already were stressed about that situation. That's going to totally raise your stress level. But if you know and you have some control over, okay, this is going to happen. The dentist is going to show up. I'm going to sit in this chair. You have a little more control over that situation. And that's where predictors really can help you out. The biggest place that I'm using them besides our hesitant dogs is in husbandry training, giving predictor cues for the dog to know that they're going to be touched so they aren't surprised that hands are going to be put on them. We give all sorts of layers of predictor cues for our vet phobic clients, starting with being touched to that their skin is going to be manipulated if we're giving a vaccine, to we even warn them before they're going to get poked with the needle, because we know that's going to hurt. We know that it's not going to feel great for our pets. But just like those rats that were given the warning that the shock was coming, they were able to reduce their stress because they knew what was going to happen. That's the predictor. And so we know that the vet is really hard for a lot of our pets. But how can we reduce that stress with just some simple communication of what's going to happen next, and that we're not going to just grab them? Things aren't going to happen magically when they're unexpected. And so the more we can tell them what's going to happen, the more comfortable they're going to be in their own skin and their own situation. So I could go on for a very long time about predictors. I actually am thinking about teaching a predictor class. So I'm trying to mull it over about what that would look like. And it would be an online class. So if you are interested in delving a little bit deeper into this concept of predictability, both good and bad, let me know in the comments if you'd be interested in a class. And because we're thinking about maybe doing that in January or February. The Just taking the time as I started doing this research to really watch what predictors are going on in my world, good and bad, with my pets, and really starting to be a astute observer to those predictors has made a huge difference in my life, and really trying to help. um, I laugh because doing these, if I'm on my computer with my headphones on, notice I have no barking dogs right now. So you may have seen some of my lives where things have gone very awry because my dogs start demand barking at me because they realize it's training time. But if I'm sitting here in my office, welcome to my dog room office, and I have my headphones on and I'm talking to my computer like this, they know that it's boring time for them. So that becomes the predictor to do nothing. I think, let's see, I don't know, Rizzo's over there somewhere. She's over there hanging out on the chair, and Lindy's actually in her crate with the door open, just chilling in her crate, because this is how I spend most of my day now, doing online training. And so they know nothing's gonna happen. They're not gonna get treats. It's gonna be boring. And so if they just chill, then we'll get to go and do something fun shortly. And that's become the predictor. Someone said they would love a class. Yay. Okay, good. I'm not sure if people are as nerdily interested in predictability as I am. So, yes. It looks, do you have Joanne, do you have a bird on your shoulder in that photo? Because I would love a multi-species predictability class. That would like make me super excited. Um, so I hope, if you, like I said, if you're a Pet Professional Guild member and you are attending Geek Week, please come and hang out with us, out with me and my predictability talk, and just start observing your pets and seeing where those predictors are and what's going on in your life, and how ridiculously predictable we are, and how that can help or hinder your situation with your pet and your training. So if you have any questions about predictability, you can put them up in the comments. I'll kind of stay on here and hang out. Oh, it's a parrot. Yay. Oh my God, I love birds. I used to be a little scared of birds and bird training. I've never done chicken camp because I used to be kind of scared of chickens. I don't know why. Oh, because I had a friend who did chicken camp and got really pecked up really bad. But I've had the pleasure of hanging out at a place called Cockatoo Downs here in Oregon and getting to train some of her cockatoos. And definitely, it has opened my eyes to that birds are super fun. I'm fascinated by them, but a little scared of them. So super cool that you have a parrot. Awesome. I don't know if you caught our live earlier that Lorena did with her bird Picasso. So she did one last week. It's in our saved live section. So please go ahead and check that out. So awesome. Somebody else would be interested in a predictability dog class. So that would be awesome. So I think that gives me enough to like start digging in and how would I work on this class because I think it would be super fun. Um, so if you have any questions in general about predictability, how it's hurting you or helping you, please feel free to leave it in the comments. We will definitely come back and make comments on your comments. And I hope that you can join us on Thursday. Lorena will be doing another Facebook Live. I forgot to look up the topic. So